We are continuing on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, and we are up to Seif, Siman Ayin Bet, Seif Bet, of the halachot of people who are involved with an active funeral, whether or not they're going to be chayav to say Shema or not. Maran writes, En motzin et hamet samuch lekriyat Shema. We spoke about the b'di'eved situation of how you could get rid of your situation. If you're going to be obligated, you're not going to be obligated. How do you deal with the problem of being present and helping out with the funeral, and then you have the obligation of Shema? But says Maran, don't get yourself into that situation. Lechatchila. Don't plan a funeral if you could choose otherwise. Don't plan a funeral right before Shema, because then you're going to get yourself to lechatchila this situation. Therefore, don't start the funeral right prior to time of Shema. That you don't have time to start and finish the process, the proceeding of funeral before the time of Shema comes. But if you already started and the rabbi comes and says, "What are you doing?" then you don't stop it. You started it, you finish it. Now, Mishna Berurah, Chafetz Chaim in Seif Katan Vav says, "Uldina iskimu achronim la'akel b'shel arvit." But if it has been shel arvit, then achronim say, "Well, what's the alternative? If you don't do it, if you don't start it right now, there is an isur of bal talin. You can't let the body, the corpse, the deceased, just lay around overnight." They're very makpid on this in Yerushalayim. In Yerushalayim, regardless of who the person is that died, how many families he has in and outside of the town, and what time of the day, there's no way, even if they die at night, they will right away do the tahara and right away bury them that same night. They don't wait until the morning. Even though that you could really do it after you say Shema and after you daven Arvit, if you let it become night, you will be over on the mitzvah daseh of bayomahu, because the day switches from day to night. So therefore, if you could start it right before night begins and do it in that same day, the achronim say you do it that same day before shkiyat hachama, before the sunset. Now, even according to this halacha, this de'ah that Mishna Berurah brings and seems to side with, the Kaf HaChaim writes that if it's already Ziman Plag HaMincha, you should say Shema first. This is based on some shitot in the Rishonim, Rabbi Tam, the Tosafot in the beginning of Masechet Brachot Daf Bet, and so on. And therefore, you first say Shema, then you start the proceeding of Kivurah, and then hopefully, Be'ezrat Hashem, you say it again afterwards. Again, for details of this are beyond our scope right now, but the importance of the Isur of Halanat Hamet, of letting this is something that's important to talk about, because many times nowadays people think gatherings are more important than burial. So wait until your uncle comes and your aunt comes and your fifth cousin 7 times removed comes and so on. That's not necessarily something that's going to trump the importance of burial right immediately after the person has passed away. The Radbaz writes, this in Shelot Utshuvot Radbaz, and Radbaz we have mentioned many times. He was the Nagid of Mitzrayim. By many, he's considered one of the last generation of Rishonim, and he basically overlapped with Maran Shulchan Aruch. He lived a very blessed, healthy life into his 90s, and so on and so forth. So in Chelek Dalet of his Tshuvot Siman Kuf Zayin, he writes, "V'chachmei ha'emet yichmiru." It's based on the Mekubalim. Ve'amru ki behalino et hamet nichnasim bo kochot hatum'ah. It's so devastating for the deceased to let the body just lay around, because kochot hatum'ah, they govern over it, because a body of a person is b'tzelem elokim nivra bara et ha'adam. So therefore, sholtin bo balayla, those kochot hatum'ah, they have a shlita, they have governing over at nighttime, and therefore the neshama mista'eret harbe ve'en machnisin oto lemechisato sheikaber haguf at sheikaber haguf. They don't let the neshama go to its mechitza until it's buried. The truth of the matter is, until decomposition, still the neshama is in some level of sar. The Perei Yoetz writes about this, Rabbi Yezer Papo, and he actually just stops his piece over there, and he writes a little bit of a tzava'ah, a little bit of a will. He says, therefore, I am telling you, to my children, to my students, that when I die, he writes, bury me in a place that the body decomposes very quickly, because the neshama is in sar until the neshama has complete detachment from the goof, and so on and so forth. So there's a process, again, not for now. There's a lot to be talked about the first 7 days that the neshama goes between the makom kivura and the residence that he had, and so on and so forth, and then still is attached to the makom of the kivura until the decomposition, and then even after that, it still comes down on every Rosh Chodesh, 15th of Chodesh, and so on and so forth. In your side, there's a lot to be talked about, but here we're just saying a basic thing, that until the body is buried, right? The Radbaz, the Balim have emphasized this a lot, that the neshama is in tremendous sar. So therefore, the sooner it could be done, the better it will be. Even though that we have shomer and there's no disrespect to the guf and so on, but until the actual burial, the neshama is in a certain level of tsar. So therefore, it's important to hasten the process of burial as much as possible. Now, we explained that when you wait for the kvura until the night comes, basically, then you don't necessarily transgress the isura baltalin. You're only over on mitzvat aseh of kikavor tikverenu bayomahu. The Torah says you have to bury him on that day, right? So there are two isurim. One is mitzvat aseh, one is a lot aseh. Mitzvat aseh is bayomahu. So if you wait until shkia or seta kochavim, you miss that mitzvat aseh. And if you wait until the morning, then you're in transgression of a lot aseh of baltalin. So therefore, if he died at night, you do it right away. Before the morning, then you don't have baltalin. If it was before Shkia, you try your best to start burial before Shkia, to be mekayem, the mitzvat aseh, the positive commandment of ki kavor tikverenu bayomahu. That day should be buried, and that's what the Kaf HaChaim paskins as well. That at night, if you wait until the night, you only have missed the mitzvat aseh, but you don't transgress the don't do the baltalin until the morning. If you wait until the morning, then alot hashachar is when you're going to be in transgression of baltalin. Maran writes in Seif Gimel, ha'am ha'oskim be'hesped, people who are busy in the eulogy, bizman shamed mutal lifnehem, when the corpse is laying there or in the coffin. Nishmatim echad echad ve'korin mitpalelin. There's a group of people there, so one by one, not all of them at the same time, one by one they go to the corner somewhere far, they say Shema, they daven, they come back, another person goes. This way, they'll catch their mitzvah of saying Shema and davening properly. And this is, says Maran, Eina met mutal lifnehem, hem korin mitpalelin ve'aoren yoshev bedome. If there's no corpse there, so then there's no isur of saying Shema right there. You don't have to go somewhere else. So all of them could daven even together, and the onen waits. I mean, the onen does not daven, of course, does not say brachot. We mentioned that already. So they could daven, and then he just sits there quietly until they finish, and they'll proceed afterwards. Now, the Mishna Berurah Chafetz Chaim writes in Seif Katan Yud, Harbe poskim חולקים וסביר עליהו, דהקלו לעניין תפילה באמת מוטל לפניהם, כיוון שהתפילה הוא דרבנן. The many poskim disagree with this Shulchan Aruch and hold that the Batfilah, which is the Rabbanan, you could even do it when the coffin is there. Now, the Kaf HaChaim brings that this leniency, this kula that the Mishna Berurah brings over here, is only when you have time afterwards to daven after the hesped. But if you don't have time afterwards to daven, then you have to stop and daven right there and then. So it comes out, according to the Mishna Berurah, in Seif Katan Yud, when it says mitpalelin, this is the towards the end of this Seif, that the Shulchan Aruch says, if the that each one of them goes in the corner away and davens and then comes back. On that, the Mishna Berurah writes, many are mekel, and the psak of Mishna Berurah is when inyan chazan hasaptan bevadai yesh nismoch la'akel shelo yistarech la'afsik l'tfilah, that he shouldn't have to stop for tfilah. The afilu le'inyan kriyat shema yesh omrim dehu patur baze. So that's the differentiation that the Mishna Berurah has for the chazan. But again, as we mentioned, the Kaf HaChaim adds to that this leniency is only when they're going to have time afterwards. One by one they're going and they're doing it. But if there's no time, then they have to stop the proceeding and daven, and then they resume afterwards. Now, one more Shulchan Aruch over here in Seif Dalet. Kavru et hamet v'chazru ha'avelim lekabel tanchumim. So they go, they bury. When the burial is finished, the avelim come back, and the people give them tanchumin. People come to console them. People come to visit them, to speak with them, to hear and talk about the deceased and give tanchumin. The whole funeral proceeding, all the people who went for the funeral, they come back from the place of kever, to the place that the avelim are standing, to make a shura. Now it's time for Shema. You are going to do this shura thing. So says the Shulchan Aruch, if you could quickly say the pasuk of Shema, pasuk echad, kodem she'agir shura, yatchilu, you should start. Ve'im lav lo yatchilu. If you can't say it, if you have not enough time, it's moving quickly, then you shouldn't start. And the Ramah adds, im yesh shahut beyom likrot achar kach, it's only if there is enough time to say Shema afterwards. If not, if you're going to be missing the entire time for Shema, mamash, right now, it's either say it now or do the Shura and miss Shema. Of course, says the Ramah, you have to say Shema. So on that, the Mishna Berurah says, yes, shahut, in this Ramah, that you still have time. It's between going to Shura and wishing them Tanchumin, or missing Shema or saying Shema, you should say Shema, says Mishna Berurah, of course. Because you're not a osek b'mitzvah yet. You haven't, so you finished the mitzvah of Kippurah, Chesed, whatever it is, and you haven't started the mitzvah of Tanchumin. So you're in between. So the chiyuv of Kriyat Shema kicks in right there and would prevent you from starting the mitzvah of Tanchumin until you're done with the mitzvah of Shema. That's what the mechanism of it would be, says the Chafetz Chaim. So it comes out that the mitzvah of Tanchumin, if you started it already, then you sat there in front of the person and he's talking about his father, mother, whatever it is, and you're listening and you're there, And then you say, oh, gee, I forgot to say Shema. The time of Shema is going to pass now. But you already started the Tanchumin. Based on this, Chafetz Chaim should come out that you should be patur from Kriyat Shema. And based on this, the Pelei Yoetz in his Halacha Sefer, the Chesed Alafim, a tremendous Sefer, the Ben Ish Chai, much of it is based on this Sefer of Chesed Alafim. He says, you see from here how big the mitzvah of Tanchumin is. You could miss mitzvah Kriyat Shema, mitzvah Oraita, mitzvah Chaviva, because you're busy with Tanchumei Avelim, and every person should be careful to do the mitzvah of Tanchumin properly, right? To say the proper things. Some people are so insensitive. This is, he hints to this. When you go there, you have to be careful. There are halachot, first of all, you don't talk until they start, so on and so forth. But what you say, sometimes is even more important than what you don't say. A person, we have had, unfortunately, these young people that we lost in Eretz Yisrael, in tragedies and so on. You go there, you start trying to make sense out of it, of why they were kapara for Ka'am Yisrael, right? And the Avel in his heart wants to say, you should have been a kapara, you shouldn't talk like this. It's not right. Or you say, oh, we don't understand. You have to be sensitive to the way one of my friends, close friends, Rav, his father was a Rebbe, was a beloved teacher, and he passed away out of cancer, Rahman Litzlan. And he was telling me after the Shiva how insensitive some people are. I told him, give me examples. So his father used to bike a lot. And he said, some people can't say, you know why your father died of cancer, even though it was not? Because he was biking amongst all the exhaust of the cars, in the middle of the cars, and that's insensitive. You have to know what not to say. Sometimes it's just better to be quiet and say that we don't understand, which is the truth. We don't understand, especially in tragic, in tragic cases. There's no words sometimes to say, and just being there, listening to them, and being a shoulder for the people is the mitzvah. It's a tremendous mitzvah. Says the Chesed Alafim. It's something to be careful, and not to be insensitive when a person participates in it. Some people, again, they come in. You kind of almost see that they're checking a box on their checklist. That's not the mitzvah Tanchumin. When you go there, you have the time of the day for them. You can miss Kriyat Shema for it. So it's, again, all this is part of, nobody wants to be your etrogan lulav, that you're doing a mitzvah with them. They want the companion, they want the care and concern that is genuine, and that is the mitzvah. The mitzvah is not, okay, checklist, go inside and come out 2 minutes later, you text the rabbi, what's the minimum time I can stay in the Shiva house, and I still did my mitzvah. It doesn't work like that. It's something of an emotional support for a person to be able to let out the anguish and the sa'ar, and it's a therapeutical thing which the Torah has commanded. Okay, a lot could be said about that. Just one piece over here that the Biur Halacha mentions over here, the Biur Halacha on the side, he mentions from the Pri Megadim, shekatav de mashma mize she'aosek b'mitzvah afilu b'mitzvah derabanan shuv en lo lifsok afilu lemitzvah deoraita. We mentioned this priorly in the name of Chacham Obadiah, that even though that the Pri Megadim leaves the source of his words of the Magen Avraham in Sarich Iyun, but nevertheless, says Chacham Obadiah, he's not disagreeing with the Magen Avraham, and that's the halacha, that if you're even busy with a mitzvah derabanan, you're patur from even a mitzvah deoraita. You can't say, well, it's a mitzvah deoraita. How can a mitzvah derabanan trump a mitzvah deoraita? We don't say that. Even if you're busy with the mitzvah derabanan, which is Tanchumei Avelim, as a mitzvah derabanan, you will be patur from a mitzvah deoraita of Kriyat Shema. Bezrat Hashem, we will start the next Siman in the days to come.